Hey guys, welcome back to Pillbox Movies. I'm Hank, and today we're going to be watching the 2021 Taiwanese horror movie, The Sadness. This is a film directed by Rob Jabaz in his directorial debut. It stars Su Berant, Regina, and Wang Tzuqiang. I've heard that this is a pretty graphic horror movie. I'm excited to see how far it pushes the limits, but other than that, I'm pretty much going in blind, which is how I usually like to go into my horror movies. So let's do that. And before we get started, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe for more old, obscure, and art house films. Sign up for my Patreon if you want to check out even more obscure, art house, and old films. A lean hour 40, 100-minute movie. You'll love to see it. Apart from the it's a virus movie. Apart from this movie specifically, just talking about movies in general, I'm always interested to kind of parse out what becomes like socially acceptable and what becomes like too extreme or outside the norms. Like, we have generally accepted movies that are like too violent or too whatever for public consumption, like the usual ones like Sallow or Martyrs. But I think there's some pretty violent movies that are in the public taste and basically are just by reason of public acceptance. Like, things I think of like Chernobyl, for example, is a really graphic, violent series, and I actually think that Squid Game is pretty violent for what it is, but because they're within the public lexicon as like cool or popular, that kind of mainstreaming effect dulls down the implicit violence of the work. Not to say that the violence doesn't exist within those works, but the violence has become socially acceptable. It's also interesting to see the kind of different lighting or filter styles, color correction styles of different countries. Not to say this is true of all Taiwanese films, but this is obviously a little bit more green than we're used to seeing in American films currently. And it's also pushing into the yellow-orange style that was predominant in the 2000s. It's got a little bit of a Takeshi Kaneshiro vibe going on. Well, they're allowed to show YouTube in Taiwan.
这个病毒休眠中这个蛋白链哦，我们可以发现特定的病毒序列，它其实这部分跟狂犬病的病毒。
Okay, I guess establishing a rabies variant of this virus. Old lady on a rooftop. Always a good trope in horror movies. She's just doing performance art, as one does. Sleep it off, yeah. I mean, it's true. You don't need me to point out all this commentary stuff, right? This is fairly obvious, surface level kind of messaging that the movie is showcasing. Yes, I was going to say, we're setting up a bunch of kind of red flags or potential future threats, like his battery, like his phone not being charged, or him leaving his phone behind, and just little kind of insinuations happening, like this is going to be related to rabies, and him taking the bite out of the baozi, signifying like gnashing or maceration that might be involved later on in this movie. His neighbor having the scissors to clip the Thai basil. Just a lot of kind of initial threats being laid into the groundwork. I've only been to Taiwan once in my life, but this is a good example of a more like a hotter climate than we're used to seeing portrayed in film, like equatorial. It's nice to see depicted. It's like quite normal to have like, like an old lady trope or an elderly person be like the first that's initially infected and stuff, but that does tie in well, kind of the narrative of this being a pandemic-based story, and that the elderly and sick and infirm would be more susceptible earlier. No! Ooh, fuck. Oh no. That's a lot already to start off with. What's happening? You charged up yet? You really didn't need to unplug it. Some Russian animation, I think this is. There was another Asian movie I was just watching that was interacting with Russian culture. What was it? The big bad wolf being like the terror of this pandemic or this disease. Oh, I was just watching the ceremony, Gashiki. The Nag... Oh, he's fucking those... What the hell? Ooh, bigger scissors now. Ooh. I kind of like that he didn't initially react to having his fingers cut off. Like, the shock of it doesn't set in immediately. The literal shock and also, like, the shock. The surprise. Tarnishing that good Buddha's name. Ooh. In a way, this is like the purview of horror movies to explicate and exaggerate the kind of horrors we have in real life. And I you know, a horror movie isn't policy planning or anything, but it kind of flattens the actual issues of these kind of subjects. Like, part of the issue of a pandemic as we've experienced is that the intubation and sickness isn't as quick and isn't as apparent as it would be as portrayed in a horror movie, as in a zombie movie. And so the IRL horror of something like a pandemic is the length to which people will be able to ignore it and trivialize it until it's too late, until spread has reached a critical mass. Oh. But it is weird to me that because this is like a zombie-ish movie, like a zombie-adjacent kind of movie, the horror of it and the violence of it isn't as violent to me. But if you take the same amount of violence and apply it to like a serial killer movie, just the change in genre or subgenre is enough to actually change your relationship to it. He better be an ally. He better not turn. I hope he can help them out. Because it'd be too obvious if he just turned, and I don't know how to explain this. Like, horror movies, by necessity of being very simplistic stories, sometimes exacerbate inherent biases, and so something that I'm kind of already identifying in this is a fear of the other, and the other is a very nebulous term, but some things that it can apply to are like the elderly, the poor, and so like it'd be sad to see it also applied to this man. If only because it's reinforcing kind of fears of otherness. No, he's the zombie. His eyes have turned. He's got a little bit of makeup around his eyes. Keep those eyes open. Doing a Cowboy Bebop. This also sucks to see after a neighborhood of mine just had a shooting in the subways. Yes, they did the Nightmare on Elm Street shot. Spit on him! Spit on him! Oh, that sucks. That's also kind of bringing up things that were spoken about in like incel forums. It's really kind of interesting the way this is kind of presenting its messages. There's kind of the external messages that it's sending based on like how it's reporting or depicting kind of trends of behavior in modern society, but that may be running counterintuitive with the interior story that it's telling. Like the underlying zombie outbreak story that it's telling. Okay, we're doing the two things together, I guess. Yeah, no service in the subways. That makes sense. I'm gonna pause for a second. Well, what am I trying to say? Do you understand what I mean? It's telling the kind of the outward story, the external story, is something about how certain aspects, how certain factions within a society will react to science, or react to a pandemic outbreak, or react to violence. The way that people were deniers of the virus, or the way that people are on their phones and taking pictures of the images, taking pictures of the assaults that are happening instead of trying to do something to prevent it. So these are kind of like modern observations that the movie is making about how our current society interacts with these kind of these issues, and how we do it to our own detriment. But in some ways, this is running contrary to the underlying story that's being told, the story of a regular zombie narrative and of outbreak and stuff. Like in its most basic form, a zombie outbreak story usually trends towards a story of in-group, out-group, defending the people you know against the people that you don't know. And that in its own way is a conservative narrative. I'm not saying that all zombie movies have to be this way, just that tendency, that inclination is in there, and it's been reinforced by so many zombie movies following the same trajectory. And so if you want to create a story that kind of refutes this in-group, out-group mentality, that's about trust and about believing in science and about rationale versus emotionality or outrage or violence and anger in this depiction, you also need to bake that into the underlying story that you're telling. Otherwise people will be getting the surface level message of this thing bad, these people bad, without examining the underlying story of these impulses are what creates these issues, and how do we address these kind of underlying impulses. Not that this is a bad thing, but this seems to be a zombie movie that's concerned with pyrotechnics. That's priorities are making as gushy and bloody and gooey a film as possible, and not necessarily on the sophistication of the messaging, which I completely understand. I'm just pointing it out. Once again, I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but this kind of flow of the narrative has been inherent to this narrative, to this genre since like Birth of a Nation. And this narrative, you need like a bigger might to fight the might of the evil. So in a way, I'm like happy that he doesn't prove to be the solution to this, and just gets his fucking nose bit off. I have very particular things that I like hate seeing depicted. I like hate head trauma, but like depicted head trauma. So I'm mostly okay with like seeing like hands or fingers or legs like cut off and stuff. I hate seeing it happen to the head. That's one of my, like, visceral kind of ugh. Triggers. It's Indiana Jones. Oh, come on, don't let the fat girl get caught. Ooh. I like that. It's annoying, but I like it. I love how beautiful Taiwan is. Can't get over it. Just a beautiful tropical island. Oh, that CGI is a little wonk. It's good of them to provide covering to actually cover the real actor's fingers as well. Don't have to put any more money into CGI for a good portion of the movie. Just watch this entire sequence, I guess. Whatever you need to justify beating up kids in a movie, I guess. Have an action sequence beating up a bunch of teenagers. I guess that's what we're doing now. No outbreak protocol whatsoever. Oh, I'm not gonna be able to monetize this video at all, am I? Oh, fuck. I mean, if you die, that's not gonna be worth much. Yeah, I thought so.
先向大家致歉，因为我们无法及时掌握这个情况，我们必须同舟共济。这是中华民国有史以来最大的一场
Why
考
would
验。
stylize this portion so explicitly?
根据可靠的数据指出，
They did not tailor that suit to that actor. Jesus Christ.
不管是杀人、施虐，还是强暴，
Into his mouth. Yeah, you can't show that on. Is anger the root? Okay, so that would be a good kind of development on the messaging that the anger is causing this outbreak. That it's people's violent tendencies. Hi. Nice. He pierced through. I mean, I think an axe could do it, but he pierced through a fucking, like, a flak jacket or a bulletproof vest. I don't like all this. Why was she just left there, by the way? I mean, it's a hospital, that happens, I guess, but why was she just left in this weird corner? It's wearing suspenders with the belt. It's a nice detail, him gonna fuck her eye. That sucks. They took the hostile formula and they were like, take it one step further.
现在路都封住，我要绕一下路，我一定会过去找你，好吗？
阿哲，我真的好爱你，对我来说有多么重要都没有。
He's got the virus in him? Yeah, because he's seeing like a woman and it's inspiring bad feelings in him.
我也爱你。
Let's not talk about labels right now. Nice with a very, very slight tilt on the camera. It seems like paradise. I don't know what the problem is. I like how the zombies all become hot when they start fucking each other. He's like, I want to become a zombie. God, I wish that were me. They're making the fat one be the one that's eating. Eating a little baby. You gotta do her dirty like that. I am, in my own very small way, happy for the fat representation in this movie. Fat people make great actors. They save a lot on production just by showing the reaction shots, just by like making a lot of blood shoot out and not showing the actual like gristle happening. It's a good like cost-saving measure. It's like what the Joker said in The Dark Knight, like, look at how much I could do with just a couple of bullets and a few barrels of gasoline. Like, they're making their movies seem more explicit and violent than it is by having so much blood effects as opposed to having gore effects, as many gore effects. Like, there's a couple in key places, but in terms of actually like seeing something happening in shot, it's usually just blood. Learning words I've never heard before. See what I mean about not necessarily showing the money shot as often? Maybe we'll show it here. One final thing. Split his head in. Maybe they'll get together, the boyfriend and girlfriend, and they'll just be violent together, and that's how they'll kind of like... I don't know if that'll be like a happy ending per se, but they'll kind of accept violence in each other. Or we'll have like a final duel of which one will kill the other at the end of this. I'm gonna need a delouse you over here.
Hey, 过去淋浴那边，水管上面有手铐，把自己铐起来。
Why would you have a gun? Why aren't her feet bloody?
铐起来。
That's one of those things. It doesn't matter, but it's one of those little production details where I'm like, she should definitely have blood on her on the bottom of her feet.
把衣服脱掉，衣服上面可能会有病毒。
So why are you taking off your mask and shit?
我会给你干净的手术衣。
I'm glad everybody has their priorities in order.
我哋喺做庇護，根本就避下嚟。
We are fucked. I like that detail. I wonder how many Taiwanese people in the audience would be able to see that. Is that spelled right? Is that a K or a T?
吓到你了。病毒会发生突变这个事情，我已经整整讲了1年了。
Oh, he's the virologist from earlier. I see. I see.
事实上，我们每个人都只是受到边缘系统的影响，大脑只是为了控制我们的。
Yeah, so that's the, I guess, higher message of this, that humans in the end are base, subject to primal impulses.
病毒不会降低他们的想象力，反而会让他们想出最可怕的行为。
He got all that in like half a day.
这个机制跟虐待。
I wonder how he's been conducting his research. That baby was quiet for a really long time. It's infected, don't touch it. That's how he learned. Oh, so he created this virus because nobody was listening to him with regards to pandemic prevention.
如果你对病毒免疫， 那大家就有救了。要是我拉开帘子，我发现你在那，
So who's the real monster?
直接把你杀掉。
The monsters outside or the monsters who conduct science experiments? Yeah, so once again, this movie is not a policy-making movie, but kind of doing the doctors are bad too slant to the story is...
注册病毒，摕来做实验，我都做唔掉。
Me, right now. Only 2 bullets. Jesus, somebody's gotta help out the Taiwanese military. In a way, this is the same ending as Children of Men. In a way. In a whisper of a way. That was awesome.
凯婷，找到你了。
找到你啊！跟你说。
你刚才我睇下嘢啦，就爽，就爽。
I killed those babies and it felt so good. I'm of like 2 minds right now. I wish they hadn't concluded this in like such a dark area. It fits atmospherically, but I wish they had some cleaner lighting solutions for their talent. It's not bad at all. It's just like this must have been presented so many issues to shoot in terms of legibility.
感觉
Like home.
找到你好快乐。
And she's like, maybe I should accept this.
会下来接你的吗？找到你了。
Well, you know, when a man wants you that bad,
你讲了，
what else can you say?
今天早上就知道，我一定要找到你。然后再把你这奶子割下来。
The Shining turn. You love to see it. Full heel turn. Darling, baby, light of my life. You didn't listen to what I said. I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm gonna bash your brains in. Bash them the fuck in.
我真的很爱你。
She's turning too. I mean, I guess that's a good reason to have it. It's such a dark setting that you can't actually see the transformation happening. She wasn't turning. Okay, well, whatever. He really should have just spat in her face. Oh, they killed her. That sucks. It's like Reservoir Dogs. I mean, that's what relationships feel like. I'm not sure I know what all the fuss was about this movie. I think I get the way it mixes the violence with the sexual aspect is probably unsettling to an audience. I don't think this is, like, by any stretch, like the most gruesome or violent movie that I've seen. Or, I understand it's a good message movie and whatever, but I also have my qualms with that. Not in terms of the message it sends, but in terms of the means of delivery. Yeah, whatever, a whole other discussion, but I think it's a little bit contrarian to say, like, Scientists Bad too. But I do get something that I do kind of want to highlight about the movie in terms of its perhaps appeal to an American or a Western audience is that it is just showcasing other cultures as like markets and producers of entertaining and appealing work. Like As much as I love the the kind of art house cinema con art housey movies thing, like a regular audience hates that shit. I'll be quite honest, hates that shit and doesn't want to be bombarded with that. So this is a good kind of alternative, presenting movies from different countries, different cultures that are just as entertaining or shocking as anything we produce here. And it's good to have that kind of cultural diversity, even though for the most part I would say aesthetically it's not so different. these zombies movies aren't so different, you and I. But yeah, an inoffensive, well, offensive, but inoffensive little kind of horror movie that has international appeal, like Train to Busan. Yeah, that was The Sadness. I don't know why it's called The Sadness. Why is it called The Sadness? It's a really good effort in terms of a first movie. I will say that. Yeah, that was The Sadness. Have you seen this movie? Check it out. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to click the like button and subscribe for more old, obscure, and art house films. And until next time, keep watching good movies.